I asked GPT-5 Pro to just explain my own aesthetic theory and my own aesthetic philosophy back to me. So it has a full accounting. Well, it has a good accounting of a lot of the things that I think about because I put it into GPT and talk about it back and forth with GPT. So I asked it just to give a presentation of everything that I think about aesthetically. I don't think it actually turned out to be comprehensive, but it's good. So I'm going to go over it. It's calling it Beauty is Knowledge. Of course, I say that a lot, so that makes a lot of sense. It has a subtitle, A Playbook for Infinite Growth. I've never used a playbook before. I don't know what the reference is for a playbook. I think it's a business term. So here's the claim. Beauty is knowledge. It's not a mood. It's not a luxury. It's knowledge. Specifically, beauty is what happens when a pattern solves a live conflict of ideas under real constraints. When that conflict is resolved cleanly enough that alternatives feel clumsy, you and I recognize it as beautiful. Now, I actually don't know if that's accurate to what I think. I know it's not accurate to what I think. I don't know if it's accurate. Beauty is a resolution of a conflict. Conflict might not even be the right word, but you have two ideas, then you have a way to resolve those two ideas or to make those two ideas work together. The resolution would be beauty. It's a solution for that problem of resolving those two things. But it could also be the constraints of a medium. So then the ideas don't need to be the ideas that you want to express. It could be the constraints that you want to express any particular idea within. For example, I'm telling you this stuff in a YouTube video. So the constraint is that I want it to be a YouTube video, and I also want to tell you these things. So there's a way for me to tell you these things in a YouTube video that is beautiful. Now, the solution that I have is just to just do it with minimal editing and very little presentation, very little preparation beforehand. It's not a great solution, let me tell you. It's not a great solution, but it is a solution. And that solution can be abstracted and used in other contexts. And most importantly, that solution can be improved. So hopefully you'll see some improvement over the coming years and months or whatever of this YouTube channel. This isn't poetry for poetry's sake. It's testable. It's a testable way to grow beauty endlessly. My mission is simple. It's to spread beauty and to facilitate its infinite growth. That means turning taste into a systematic process that anyone can learn, apply, and improve. Yeah, I mean, I can understand why it's saying that, but it's close. It's close enough. So this is what I mean by conflict, constraint, and aesthetic content. The conflict is a friction between aims or ideas that cannot be resolved at once. GPT got that wrong. That's not what I mean by conflict. I mentioned conflict earlier. It's just two things. Constraints. This is the givens that make a problem meaningful. The materials, the time, the tools, the audience, the medium, the culture, the budget, the physics, the platform norms, or your own values. Yeah, sure. And aesthetic content is the minimal pattern that resolves the conflict within these constraints. Think of it as an explanation of why this works embedded into the work itself. I would actually think of that as that is the solution. That is the aesthetic solution. That's the beauty, right? The embedded explanation for why this works that's the solution. Aesthetic content, what I mean by aesthetic content is the solution might be a visual thing, or the solution might be visual and auditory. So having multiple dimensions means that it has more content. The content is the dimensions that are being used, or the amount of things that are being used for the beauty. It's not the beauty itself, it's the amount of things being constrained by the beauty. I feel like there's a better way of explaining that, but I don't know it. Beauty is when that explanation clicks, not because we're told it's good, but because the pattern actually does the job. There are three modes of beauty that I have identified. One is reliability. The work is reliably beautiful if it stays beautiful when you change its conditions. Put it different speakers, you use different lighting, you use different water for the tea, you have different viewers. It's reliable. You can rewatch it multiple times. I'm adding that. It's reliable. And that means that the underlying explanation is robust. Very good. Next mode is different context. This is actually very similar to reliability, but some beauty depends on where and how you meet it. This is like cultural cues. This is this is timing, this is the environment, this is your personal history. Context is not a flaw. It is a part of the problem definition and a part of the solution. Great creators design for the context instead of pretending it doesn't matter. So if something can fit into multiple contexts, it is more beautiful. One mode of evaluating beauty is to see if it fits into multiple contexts. So I wonder if we will get into it more in this presentation, but just to kind of explain that a little bit. The idea is, this is getting a part of the aesthetic content also. So let's say, for example, if I have a steak dinner, I go to a restaurant and I get a steak dinner. I go to a restaurant, I get a steak dinner. Okay. The context is that I'm in a restaurant, but I think the thing that is beautiful is the steak. The context is the restaurant. And now, since I think the steak is the thing that is beautiful, it should be able to be abstracted away from that context and put into a different context. So I should be able to take the steak and put it into my house and eat the same steak and have a similar, I will say, just the same experience of that beauty. It'll be a different experience of different beauties, but that particular beauty of the steak will be the same. So me eating the steak should be the same beauty. So that would be the aesthetic content, would be the beauty of the steak, the taste of the steak, and the context is the environment in which I'm eating it. Now I can just test this by eating the steak at the restaurant and then eating the steak at home and seeing if they're the same. Trying, of course, to keep everything else the same, keeping the cooking style the same, whatever, the temperature, the chef, whatever, keeping all that the same. And you'll find likely that it works well. The steak is the thing that is beautiful, right? The context, it works in both contexts. It works in multiple contexts. Now I want to falsify, this is kind of a part of this, I want to falsify the idea that the steak is the thing that is beautiful, and I do that by putting it into more different contexts. So if I put this steak into an airplane that is flying 30,000 feet above the ground, and I eat that same steak, is it going to taste the same? Is it going to have the same beauty? And I think the answer is pretty obvious. Maybe it isn't. I don't know if you know anything about what's the deal with airplane peanuts. You probably don't know. I don't know. I don't know if you know this or not. When you eat food on an airplane, it sucks. And the reason why is because usually it's really loud. So the loud noise kind of sucks. You're kind of cramped and that's very uncomfortable. And most importantly, I think, is the humidity. The air humidity in an airplane is very, very low. It's very dry. And that makes it difficult to taste anything. So we've now put this steak into a different context, and we can recognize that the steak isn't the thing that is beautiful. It is actually the steak and the ambient humidity, for example. So that means that we're expanding. We falsify the notion that the steak is the beautiful thing, and we've replaced it with a new theory, which is another bit of beauty, which is the steak and the ambient humidity. So now I'm adding aesthetic content to this, and then now I can test this in different places because I can just go back to the original restaurant and lower the humidity and see if the steak is still the same, and it will not be the same. I can go to my house and lower or raise the humidity and see if it's the same, and it won't be the same. I can go into an airplane and raise the humidity and see if it's the same, and the raised humidity in the airplane will be better than the lower humidity. So then I've now corroborated this idea that the steak and the ambient humidity is what I am perceiving as beautiful. So that is why, this is what I mean by now it fits into multiple contexts. Now the steak and the ambient humidity fits into all the context, right? And then you might eventually find a different context where it doesn't work. And then you can then have a new theory. You have to expand what you consider to be the beautiful thing. Is it the steak and the ambient humidity and the sound, steak, ambient humidity, and being comfortable sitting? You know, these types of things. You start to add more aesthetic content to really pinpoint what is beautiful. And then you will be able to use that beauty in multiple and more contexts. Okay, I went off on a tangent, long tangent on that one. Probably didn't need to do that. Okay, and then tightness. Tightness is another mode of evaluating beauty. A work is tight when a small change breaks it. Haiku level tight. If a teacup rim is a millimeter thicker, then the pour loses its silky line. Tightness signals a high density resolution. Few degrees of freedom for maximum effect. Yeah, that's what I mean by tight. So obviously when you put into if you have the steak, back to the steak example, if you have the steak in multiple contexts and you start to grow and grow the aesthetic content, instead of saying it's just the steak, it's the steak and the ambient humidity and how comfortable you are seating and all these kind of things, then you get this tight knit idea of what is beautiful, because if you change any one of them, then it is no longer beautiful. That is what I mean by tight knit. Pretty simple. So these are all separate ways of analyzing beauty. They do not compete, they interlock. I don't know if I said that earlier. There's just three different ways of criticizing or evaluating beauty. They might just be different types of beauty. I'm not really sure. I haven't quite figured that out. And I imagine there are a lot more. These are three that I've thought of so far. And they're really three categories because each of the three have a lot of different subtypes. So here, the next category is about falsifying beauty, my method of falsifying beauty, which I already described, so I might skip this. If beauty is knowledge and we should be able to treat it like knowledge, and that means that we can state a claim and try to break it. So format your claim. This is beautiful because X resolves conflict Y under constraints Z. I wouldn't put it in that form, but sure. Then stress test it. You vary the constraints. You translate the media. You remove the supports, and then you A/B the conflict. These are different ways that you can test it. Okay, I don't really, none of that made a lot of sense to me. 5, the next part. This is the engine of infinite growth. Conflicts never run out. Solve one and you surface 3 more. New mediums, new tools, new audiences, new values. This is not a bug, this is the engine. This is true. When you solve a conflict, when you create some new beauty, you create more and more problems, which could either be more details or it can be a wider scope. So it can be both of those things. So in terms of more details, more problems, right? And back to the steak, you can learn how to cook the steak with better temperature control so that it's evenly cooked all the way through with the right temperature, pretty low temperature, 55 degrees Celsius. We don't have to go into the details about that, but you want to get a medium rare, whatever, Cavemen were not really concerned about the specific rarity of the temperature of the steak. But over time, we got better and better at cooking steak, and we can control the temperature a lot easier. So we can cook it at a perfect 55 degree all the way throughout, and then like char the outside or whatever. You can get very specific about that type of thing, and that is more beauty. Is adding more detail is the growth of beauty in that case. But then also concerning the ambient humidity, this is like increasing the scope. So we're no longer looking at just the steak and how it's cooked. Now we're looking at the room and the environment, and that can change. You can change so many different things. It could be a part of the enjoyment of the steak is the color and the shape of the plate, the weight of the cutlery that you use. These are all very interesting things. I've recently, on this channel, you'll find, if you look at through the live streams, I have read through a lot of Gastrophysics. It's a book about essentially all of the things that you might think in the environment don't affect your food and the flavor and the taste experience of your food, but a lot of the things that they actually do. You might not think it does, but actually do affect your experience. So anyway, that is increasing the scope of beauty. And then immediately, once you know that ambient humidity is a factor, you can like dial in the ambient humidity. You can make the ambient humidity change over time. Be interesting. You can have the ambient humidity be like one thing for the first bite and then change it for the next bite. I don't know. You can get crazy with that, right? But now you have this increased ability to work with. I don't think we have the technology to do that now, but hypothetically speaking, that is now a possibility because you've grown the knowledge, you've grown the beauty to incorporate that. So now that could be a part of the dish that you serve. It could be a part of your eating experience. You could have a plate that changes size as you cut the steak, and as you eat more of it, it gets smaller. I don't know how crazy you want to get, right? Like, again, we don't have the technology for this type of thing. It could be fun to have it, you cut it and then somebody picks up the plate and moves it to another plate. You could have it so that the plate is constantly warmed or something like that. I'm just saying crazy things right now because the fact that we understand more factors means that we could do more things. So that is growing the scope of the beauty. That is what I'm saying. And that just means that we have more problems because these are more things that you could resolve. or more conflicts that you can see and in more new ways of resolving those conflicts. So beauty isn't scarce. Discovery is unbounded. That's interesting. I don't know if I would say that. I mean, I guess beauty is infinite and there are infinite ways of evaluating beauty and creating more beauty, but also beauty is kind of rare. Like the beauty that is actually wide reaching is quite rare. Wide reaching as in it fits into multiple contexts is quite rare. And beauty that can actually be improved is quite rare. And only humans can do this. Humans are beautiful. Huh? Each solution is a platform for the next set of better questions. And the horizon moves as fast as our courage to test, to learn, and to share. Wow, how true. Optimism here isn't naivety, it is a method. Problems are solvable and better explanations exist and we can find them. True. Oh, let's go into pessimistic theories. So GBT is going to be talking about all the pessimistic theories that I've talked about. There are a family of theories that try to say that beauty is fake. Some try to say that beauty is subjective purely. Some try to say that beauty is elitist. And some try to say that beauty is power. If anybody adopts any of these, then you stop formulating real conflicts, and you stop creating real constraints, and you stop testing claims, and you stop creating real solutions. Those types of theories remove the tools that create new beauty. Worse, there are works that are built to prove that beauty doesn't matter and end up parasitic on the very norms that they deny. They strip away all constraints and there's no conflict to resolve. So there's nothing to be beautiful about. The theory quietly destroys the thing that it is talking about. My stance is the opposite. Beauty is corrigible. We can be wrong about it and we can get less wrong about it tomorrow. It's interesting because it's using some words that I would use. I actually don't even know what the word corrigible means, but it's saying some things in ways that I would say them. But also that whole section, I feel like that whole section didn't say anything. I don't know what it meant by any of those things that it said. It sounded like it was angry. It sounded like it's passionate, but it didn't make any sense to me. That did not reflect any of my ideas of how I see pessimistic things in the world. There's some pessimistic ideas there are a lot of ideas that people say that, they think that beauty doesn't progress. There are some people who are praising themselves for not being sensitive to beauty or not being sensitive to their sensory apparatus. I don't know how to say this. Okay. So like some people who are like happy that they can't taste the difference between Fiji water and their tap water. And I mean, come on, Fiji water is way better than your tap water, okay? Unless you live in some Norwegian mountains or whatever the fuck. There is better water out there in the world and you can learn how to taste it. I mean, you don't even have to, you just fucking just put it in your face and, okay. See, even what I just said there wasn't that's funny. I just said something that was a pessimistic view. I said in one sentence, in one breath, I said, you can learn how to taste it, which is optimistic, good. And then I said, you don't even have to learn, and I stopped myself before I finished. You don't even have to learn, you just put it into your face. I was giving the impression that beauty is obvious, which again is a pessimistic view. Beauty is not obvious, you can learn, you need to learn how to appreciate beauty. You need to learn how to create beauty. When I'm saying learn here, what I just mean is that there is prerequisite knowledge for appreciating certain forms of beauty. You have to learn how to read before you can appreciate the beauty of a book, right? That type of thing is what I'm on, that type shit, all right? Like you have to know how to go into YouTube, like type in YouTube, then scroll through and click the thumbnail, right? You have to know how to do that before you can appreciate the beauty of that, because there is a art, there is a beauty to having YouTube thumbnails catch your attention and then seeing the title and so on like that. That there is a solution there. It is an interesting solution. Doesn't really fit into a lot of context. It only fits into YouTube, but we don't have to get into that. There is something beautiful about that, and you have to know how to navigate YouTube in order to appreciate that. So that means you have to have knowledge first. Knowledge is necessary for that, which means that it's not obvious. So thinking that beauty is obvious is a pessimistic view. Thinking that beauty requires knowledge and that you can have infinite growth of the prerequisite knowledge and the future knowledge and the beauty and all that stuff. That is optimistic. Okay, this has a workflow. There's a whole section of a workflow, which doesn't make any sense to me because I don't have a systematic workflow for growing beauty. It doesn't even say what it is. It just says the workflow. I don't have this in my own view. Name the conflict, list the constraints, draft the candidate resolutions, state a falsifiable claim, stress test. Yeah. Something about it feels a bit Lamarckist, and I don't know why. Something about this feels Lamarckist. I don't know. I'm just feeling weird about this one. Okay, that's all I'm saying. Moving past. Examples across media. Then it just gives examples. Oh, it's giving me a tea example. Oh, it's so cute. It knows I like tea, of course. Okay, tea. The conflict is you want intensity without harshness, and that is very true. I'm drinking a tea right now that is not intense enough. I'm having this issue with this tea right now. Okay, I'm getting like a dustiness, but when I bring up the temperature, it gets more dusty. But as I have a lower temperature, it's pleasant, but the flavors are not very strong. So I'm trying to balance between it right now. I'm doing this thing right now. Anyway, okay. Constraints. I have a water mineral profile. That should not be a constraint. That's ridiculous. I have a vessel. I have a material. I have a pour height. I have a sip size. I have ambient noise. A sip size? That's crazy. A sip size? How does it know? I don't think I talk about the sip size with GPT often. I talk about this with my friends a lot. Oolong tea, you want to sip it with smaller sips. It makes it taste better. Different types of teas, you want to get big gulps and it's better anyway. There's a whole other thing. I'm just excited. Okay, it's talking about tea. I like tea. I'm drinking tea a little bit. I'm a little excited. Okay, I'm just talking about things that I like to talk about. I'm excited right now. Okay, so some of the reliability. You want to get whatever you think is the beautiful thing, and then you want to do it multiple times. So you want to drink tea, the same tea multiple days in a row, and there you go. It's reliably giving you the feelings that you want or giving you the taste that you want. So that's the reliability there. And here it's also giving me context. So I want to change the context of putting into different times of day. I don't really drink tea at different times of day, but you can, try to drink the tea at different times of day and see if that makes a difference. Drink it with a ceremonial tone. Oh, don't drink tea with a ceremonial tone. I really don't like ceremonial things. Okay, I just don't like ceremonial things. Side note, just not relevant. All right, I'm not going to continue down that path about how much it kills me to see people thinking about ceremonies and tea. Just drink the tea. It's good tea. Okay. Think about who's present. People are being present. Does that change the tea? Change the cups? Does that change the tea? Change the water? Does that change the tea? All these things. In tightness, make the small shifts in temperature or in the leaf mass, and watch which parameters are razor edge sensitive. Okay, then it's going into short form ads. I've made ads for tea events. I also made ads for other things, so that's interesting. It's just going through all the things I know.